Just for more specificity on this, the U.S. had released a statement that the following persons will be part of the U.S. delegation that will receive the handover of the G20 to the U.S. It will be led by the embassy charged affairs. As you would know, the U.S. embassy still does not have an official ambassador just yet, but it has a chargé d'affaires, which is the senior most official at the embassy in the absence of an ambassador or a head of consulate, otherwise designated by the president of the U.S. And that person is Mark Dillard, who's the head of delegation. He'll be joined by Stephanie Boons, Ariana Saylor, Rubani Tremvu, Jeffrey Ledinson, Victoria King, David Schreider, and Heather Wright. These are the individuals that will be participating in the receiving of the G20 in the ceremonial closing session when South Africa's term comes to an end over there. Of course, this has caused a great deal of confusion with just moments ago the press secretary of President Trump, Caroline Leavitt, putting out a statement in the White House press room, once again restating that the U.S. will not participate in any of the substantive talks of the U.S. And they had quoted Ramaphosa as having run his mouth in the clip that we had just brought you in that package. International relations analyst Professor Chris Isike joins us now for more. Prof, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. This has caused a level of discomfort that's seemingly quite unnecessary at this point. And so they're sending what is relatively a junior diplomat to receive the U.S. the handover at the end of the ceremony. And of course, I guess as host, President Ramaphosa can decide whether or not he would want to hand over to that person or just issue a statement or a notice to hand it over in a letter or a presidential statement at the end of it all. He doesn't actually physically have to shake anyone's hand in the hand over there. Would it be an embarrassment for the president to subvert that and say, look, we're not going to engage with a junior diplomat here. You don't want to participate. You can't be here for the niceties. And so we'll write you a letter to tell you that you're up next.
Well, good evening, Oliver, and thank you for having me. It's morning, actually afternoon on this side of the world where I am now. Look, I think that South Africa's empty chair rhetoric may have hit a chord in Washington, D.C. Because South Africa was never going to be participating in any kind of ceremony, formal ceremony, which may have even, I would not be surprised if Mr. Trump would have invited President Cyril Ramaphosa to come hand over, the torch to him in DC. But signaling early on that this was not going to be the case, that Africa was not going to do that, may have, led to this kind of volte-face, if you like, about participating, if you use the language of the president, in one form or the other. Look, I think that what is best for South Africa to do is, of course, to hand over to the charge d'affaires. Is actually it's not that junior of an officer. He's a representative of the president in South Africa currently. So to that extent, you would say he's not a junior officer per se. But it's a good thing that there's going to be an attempt to collect the outcomes of that of the G20. And then maybe the best South Africa can do is not to give it any kind of pomp and pageantry.
Yeah, importantly here, and I mean, South Africa has stated here that we're going to go ahead with this, whether the U.S. wants to participate or not. And the U.S. has said that he warns South Africa not to issue a declaration at the end of this. And quite literally, the Minister of International Relations said, well, we're not going to listen to that. And the President has reiterated that we're not going to be held hostage by the absence of the U.S. Is that the right tonal response to a moment like this?
Well, absolutely it is, because the United States cannot dictate terms for a meeting it did not attend, right? And they cannot. It does understand that there are implications for not participating in an important meeting like the G20, and if it is opposed to the agenda, as it has clearly said it is, then it will want to move against any kind of consensus or declaration. But it cannot do that in absentia, right? I would have thought that was a good reason for them to want to participate in some form, to ensure that they are in the room when the matters are being deliberated, to ensure that there's opposition to avoid a declaration of consensus. And I will not be surprised if at the end of the day, on Saturday and Sunday, the United States does participate virtually, just to ensure that they are in the room when the decision is made about whether there can be consensus on a declaration or not. That's very important to them, even though with the way the U.S. has been acting unilaterally, they can still bypass whatever declarations, whatever consensus is reached by the rest of the world. But I think that, we will just have to wait and see what happens because, like, in politics, 24 hours is a long time.
Yeah. Chris, that's actually a really important and salient point, and I want to double-click in on that. The U.S. had released a statement saying that they will not support any declaration that comes out of this summit, and they had much earlier said they don't agree with the theme, solidarity, inclusion, that the summit is taking place under. But more importantly, is that the only way they could object to it is in plenary and in participation. And if they're not in there, they can't object. And it means if the 19 other member states plus the African Union and EU vote in favor of this, the declaration, it's unanimous in the room. And we know that the declaration can only pass if it's voted for unanimously. So for it to not pass, the US would need to object, and for that, it means they would need to participate. And you argue there, you wouldn't be surprised if they changed their mind on Saturday or Sunday and actually then participate in plenary. If that is the case, who do you think would be participating in that? Do you think it would be, once again, as a proxy, the charge d'affaires, or do you think they'll send someone more senior to virtually participate? Marco Rubio, perhaps?
Well, they don't have to send anyone to participate. Remember, they can also participate virtually, right? So they could ask for that. That's why you see the president was guarded in saying that they want to participate in one form or the other. So I think he's going to go beyond, the handover ceremony to actually being in the room, even if virtually. And in that case, anybody who's a high-ranking official of the government, can be a secretary, a minister, doesn't have to be Marco Rubio, can even be the Secretary of Trade, any of the secretaries or ministers, as can actually represent the government of the United States and be in that room. And the sole purpose of that participation will just be to oppose. I think that is what is signaling this change of heart, rather than anything that's positive for South Africa. And I dare say, at this point, that perhaps Mr. Trump not attending the G20 is good for South Africa in some ways, because I know that if he was to be here, to attend it in South Africa, a lot of the focus will be on him and what he says, what he does and does not do, giving press conferences that will take attention from everything that South Africa has tried to do over the last 1 year.
Yeah. Professor Chris Isike, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. That's International Relations Analyst, Prof Isike.